It's always a surprise when a 90s era full motion video game gets a re-release. It's even more surprising when it's one that I've never even heard of before, in this case because it was never released, because they didn't even finish it. But the cherry on top is that now, after the original November 2021 release of American Hero, we have American Hero Unrated, with more naughty bits. American Hero was originally developed by Interactive Productions and planned for release on the Atari Jaguar CD and PC. It was one of the planned titles that would have made use of game film, a then newly developed in-house interactive movie format conceived by former Atari Corporation employee David Schwartz. Game film was first used in Caves of Fear, which was used as a technology demo to show off what it could do. Without getting too technical about it all, it essentially made for the data to be arranged in a certain way so that clips could be accessed more seamlessly than what was usually seen in full-motion video games at the time. Due to the poor sales of the Jaguar CD, and let's be honest, the Jaguar in general, the game was canceled. About a year later, director Jeff Burr shot additional footage in the hopes of making it into a traditional movie. The string of bad luck continued, as during the editing process, the film negatives were severely damaged. This led to the producers taking an insurance settlement and the cancellation of the project altogether. A prototype for American Hero was eventually leaked, which allowed it to be shown at Jaguar conventions and sold online. Wait a minute, there are Jaguar conventions? Man, you learn something new every day. Fast forward yet again, years later, and development continued by restoring what footage was available and even adding additional material, such as new voiceover work by the lead actor Timothy Bottoms. This censored version of American Hero was released in 2021 on PC through GOG, as well as Xbox One, PlayStation 4, and Nintendo Switch. And now we have the release of the unrated version exclusively on GOG, which adds some extra adult content. Since I didn't get to play the game before in its censored form, and there's no option to play it that way with the unrated version, I'm not exactly sure what the differences are between the two versions, but I do have some guesses. The game kicks off right away, taking place in a strip club complete with actual nudity. I imagine that this would not have been something that would have made the cut. There is also some minor swearing, but seeing as the original release did have an M rating for strong language, I don't think that this would have been anything that would have been changed. Anyway, with all that out of the way, what is the game actually about? Players take on the role of former military intelligence operative Jack Devon. Devon is living his new life now, where he's basically living out of this strip club that I previously mentioned while drinking carrot juice? Yeah, I don't get that either. But his ex-partner Hoover finds him and asks him to join him on a mission. They need to find a missing biologist who also just so happens to be a former lover of Jack's. This former lover, named Laura, has developed an antidote to a deadly virus that has been created by a germ warfare specialist, Carl von Kruger. This virus turns anybody infected by it into a mindless zombie that can be controlled by Kruger. He's already begun spreading it through the LA water supply, and he's trying to take over the US and eventually the world. As was common with full-motion video games of the time, it was treated like a low-budget movie production. It was written and directed by people who technically worked in Hollywood, but they hadn't done much before, and in some cases it had even been a while. We're talking like 10 years prior wrote one screenplay for The Dirt Bike Kid and directed one episode of Ray Bradbury Theater. But when it came to the actors, that's where things picked up a little bit. The main star is Timothy Bottoms, who played Joe in Johnny Got His Gun, where he got his start in 1971. This movie is also famously shown prominently in the Metallica 1 video. That same year, he was also in The Last Picture Show and has 121 credits to his name. He has played George W. Bush in 3 different things, including the Comedy Central series That's My Bush, and he was also in another full-motion video game that actually did get released, Fox Hunt. His partner Hoover was played by Daniel Roebuck, who is most recently in Rob Zombie's Monsters, as well as many other Rob Zombie movies, and just movies and TV shows in general. I guarantee that you'd recognize him and that he's in something that you love. He was even originally cast in Home Alone and replaced by another Daniel Stern. He's also known for doing voiceover work and is in the latest Star Wars game Jedi Survivor, reprising his role from Jedi Fallen Order, and been in other games like L.A. Noire and Dead Rising 3. If you're a fan of low-budget and B movies, you'll probably recognize other members of the cast, but the last one that I'll mention is Musetta Vander, who played the girlfriend Laura. Starting off as a dancer in multiple music videos, including some from Elton John, Tina Turner, and Alice Cooper, she eventually did move on to doing TV, movies, and obviously video games. Early in her career, she was in the full-motion video game It Came from the Desert, but also did multiple one-off appearances in TV shows like Highlander and Buffy the Vampire Slayer, where she was the substitute teacher praying mantis. Gamers will most likely recognize her as Lady Alara in the video game Dune 2000, but also as Sindel in Mortal Kombat Annihilation, and she is still working today. Other than the fact that I found a lot of this interesting while doing much of the research, part of the reason why I've spent so much time talking about the history of the game is there isn't much to talk about when it comes to the actual gameplay itself. American Hero is essentially an interactive movie, and it's even less interactive than most FMV games of the time. You as the player will just watch scenes play out, and eventually a decision will be presented to you. These are presented like Jack having to quickly make a decision as he mulls over what his options are. So quickly it'll be like left, right, left, right, or sneak in, break in, sneak in, break in, and you press A on the option that you choose. But not choosing is also an option. Once you make a decision, that will determine how the story branches out. While there are multiple ways that the story can play out, a lot of them end up in the same place or will just end up in a death or a bad ending. As you get to new scenes in the game, you'll unlock a checkpoint so you don't have to replay the whole game all over again to try different choices. With that said, there are certain places that you can't go to unless you start the game all over again, and you will lose all of your progress. The final gaming mechanic is a fight or flight meter, which is based on the decisions that you make. It says in the beginning of the game when it's explaining how to play that it can affect what choices become available going forward, but I didn't really see it changing much of anything. There are achievements that can be unlocked while playing American Hero, and when you do so, it unlocks a new item around the TV which the game is presented in. More on that later. As an odd little bug that I ran into though while playing through GOG Galaxy, it would always tell me that I had 100% of the achievements unlocked no matter how many I had or had not done. So with that TV that I just mentioned, obviously you've made it this far in the video, and if you're actually watching, you've seen it. The game has the typical low resolution video that's played through this small TV to give it a 90s nostalgia feel. It has videotapes around it, but as you unlock the achievements, it unlocks other little items that will be placed around it. A CRT filter is available if you want to make it look more like it would have back then. There's also the option of doing a full screen video as opposed to doing it through the TV, as there's no game UI other than pressing A at certain times. Unfortunately, this full screen video is cropped to widescreen, which makes the quality even lower as it's zoomed in and you miss out on picture info. It would have been nice to have a 4:3 option to retain the original aspect ratio of the game. On PC, you have your usual options of making it windowed full screen or borderless full screen, as well as what resolution to run it in and VSync, but really in the end it's all going to look the same. It's an old 90s full motion video game. When it comes to the music and sound of American Hero, it definitely matched the quality of the production values of the quote-unquote movie shoot. It has that USA up all night feel to it with a soundtrack that sounds like it's made on a Casio keyboard. I may be over-exaggerating just a bit, but I'm not that far off. While they spend a lot of time hyping how seamless the video transitions can be, there definitely was a crackle or a stop and stutter in the music and sound when it was about to become an interactive segment.
Where's Laura?
Shoot me, and you'll never see her again.
Kill him. Later.
To end on a semi-positive note with American Hero, they did add some new material, which is newly recorded voiceover from Timothy Bottoms himself. This voiceover is kind of an inner monologue that helps flesh out what's happening a bit more, and it is a nice touch that they got the original actor. But the reason why I say it's semi-positive is that unfortunately, it adds very little to what's happening, and it's a very poor quality to it that doesn't match the rest of the game. It's also questionable as to why we're even hearing it other than to spoon feed some material to you. To sum things up, it was definitely a tall order to take an unfinished game from the 90s and bring it to now. It's nice that a piece of history was preserved and able to get out there to the public, but at the same time, there's not a whole lot there in terms of substance. You'll probably be able to see everything that the game has to offer within the usual runtime of an actual movie. American Hero is strictly for fans of full motion video games, fans of B movies, or those that just like to see gaming history preserved.